This is Action Recaps. Today, I'm going to explain a sci-fi, adventure, action film called Jupiter Ascending. A young woman's life changes forever when she finds out humans were never alone in the universe. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. Titus and his sister Kalik, heirs of the Abrasax family, walk through a barren planet that has been harvested. Titus asks if Kalik has witnessed it. Kalik says she hasn't, but has heard that harvests are humane. Titus confirms this, saying that marshals monitor the procedure. Their older brother, Balaam, arrives and says that most harvested planets' inhabitants live miserable lives anyway, and consider harvests merciful. Titus congratulates Balaam for the successful harvest, but Balaam brings up Titus' failures. Titus protests and says that Balaam looks tired and that success may disagree with him. Titus then mentions that he discovered a planet their deceased mother considered her most prized estate, Earth. The planet is under Balaam's inheritance, and Titus asks if he can have it. Kalik then tells him that Earth is worth more than all of Titus' estates combined. Balaam senses hostility in Titus' tone and decides to leave. On Earth, Jupiter wakes up. She then heads to work with her mother to clean houses. Her life consists of waking up early, cleaning houses, and sleeping, and Jupiter detests it. At an alley, bounty hunters watch a lone figure walking, and they identify the man as a hunter lycanthrope splice, a subspecies hybrid between a human and a wolf. The man then breaks into a building. The leader, Ibis, tells the other bounty hunters to prepare for a fight. The lycanthrope, Cain, enters a fertility clinic and finds Jupiter's file. Cain then detects the threat waiting for him outside, so he prepares his gun and gravity boots. Cain begins running for the door and bursts out. The bounty hunters begin shooting him, but he deploys his shields and shoots back. He outmaneuvers them and speeds away. Ibis then tells Razo they need to warn Balaam of Cain's involvement. On another planet, Kalik speaks with Maledix, and they cryptically go over her plans and how she doesn't want Titus and Balaam to know of her involvement. Balaam's ship arrives on the planet Jupiter and lands on a massive city under the clouds. Mr. Knight, the planet's overseer, greets Balaam, but Balaam wants to get straight to business. Knight tells Balaam that a gene recurrence has occurred. Balaam orders the immediate elimination of the recurrence, and Mr. Skeleton informs him that he has sent keepers to kidnap the recurrence. Meanwhile, Jupiter is helping her friend pick out clothes. She goes to the closet, but when she turns back, she finds small strange creatures, called keepers, examining her friend. She tries to take a picture, but her phone rings, and the keepers knock her out. Jupiter and her friend then wake up as if nothing had happened. At home, Jupiter wishes to buy a telescope. Her cousin, Vlad, tells her she'll get paid if she proceeds with her plans to donate her eggs to a fertility clinic. The following day, Jupiter is at the clinic for her appointment. She gets sent into the operating room, but she senses something isn't right. The doctors sedate her and place bands on her wrists and ankles. She then begins floating. After the doctors confirm her identity, one of them orders the others to kill her. Cain bursts through the door, and the doctors morph into keepers. Cain quickly shoots everyone and gets Jupiter out. Jupiter awakens and sees Cain. She grabs his weapon and holds him at gunpoint. Jupiter asks what is happening, and Cain tells her that he's from another planet. Jupiter asks why the keepers are after her, but Cain doesn't know as Titus had only hired him to retrieve her. Cain tells her she needs to go with him as the keepers would return and endanger her family. Jupiter agrees to go, and they step out a window and get beamed up to the ship that Titus sent. Small ships suddenly arrive and start shooting at them. The keepers shoot down the ship beaming them, and they fall. Cain catches Jupiter, and they speed through the streets, dodging cars and bullets. Cain manages to hijack one of the keeper ships, and they get in. They zip through buildings, shooting at each other, but Cain outflies the keepers and shoots them down. He then smashes into the final pursuer before hopping out of their ship and landing safely on the ground. Morning comes, and Jupiter and Cain are driving. Cain tells Jupiter that they may have stumbled into a war between the Abrasax siblings. He explains that the Abrasax family is one of the oldest and most powerful families in the universe. Cain surmises that Balaam might be the one who ordered the keepers to kill Jupiter. Meanwhile, Balaam reviews footage of Cain and Jupiter's escape, and he stares at Jupiter intimately. He then tells Skeleton that the next failure will come at his expense. Cain and Jupiter arrive at a small farmhouse that appears to be covered in beehives. Cain knocks on the door, and a man named Stinger answers the door, holding a shotgun. Stinger then punches Cain, and the two brawl. Stinger is mad at Cain, saying he had sacrificed a lot for him. Stinger's daughter Kiza comes out and greets Jupiter. Stinger and Cain finally stop when they see bees swarming Jupiter. The bees follow Jupiter around, and Stinger kneels in front of Jupiter, calling her Your Majesty. Inside, Jupiter keeps playing with the bee while Stinger heals Cain. He reveals that Cain is a skyjacker who had been court-martialed and got his wings removed. Cain snaps back, asking Stinger if he wants his wings back, implying that he had gone through the same. Stinger then reveals that Jupiter is of royal blood. According to him, bees are genetically programmed to identify royalty. Cain then reveals that he only accepted the job because he knew Stinger was on Earth, and part of the job's payment is Stinger getting reinstated and getting his wings back. Stinger appreciates the gesture but is more concerned that Jupiter could be a recurrence. Stinger later contacts Aegis, the galactic peacekeepers. They inform him that Earth is under a blockade, but Aegis intends to send a ship to retrieve them and take them to Horus. Cain goes to arm up, while Stinger tells Jupiter that Cain is a hybrid between a human and a wolf. Stinger considers him the best soldier he's ever met. Stinger also reveals that Cain had been court-martialed for biting a nobleman. Stinger took full blame for the incident, sparing Cain's life. Stinger then narrates the truth of the universe and reveals that humanity originated in Horus. Earth was colonized 1 billion years ago, and the explorers caused an extinction event that wiped out the dinosaurs. Outside, the bounty hunters, together with keepers, quietly make their way to Stinger's house. Stinger says that the Abrasax family colonized the planet and spliced human DNA with native species. The goal is to saturate the planet's population, and once the population exceeds the planet's ability to sustain it, a harvest occurs. Before Stinger could explain further, Cain arrives and tells them the bounty hunters are close. Stinger takes Jupiter, and Cain begins firing on the bounty hunters. Outside, Stinger is fighting through a group of keepers. The bounty hunters swarm Cain, but he disables them. A bounty hunter disables Stinger, and Jupiter runs into the cornfield. She eventually gets cornered and surrounded, but Razzo arrives and starts firing on her fellow bounty hunters. Once the dust settles, only Razzo and Ibis are left standing. They then take Jupiter into a ship, but Cain manages to get aboard before they take off. The ship then speeds up and warps into a wormhole. The ship then arrives at a strange planet and lands at a palace. Maledix greets them and hands them their payment. Jupiter awakens and Kalik greets her. Kalik takes Jupiter to an altar room and shows her a statue that bears a striking resemblance to Jupiter. Kalik says that it is a statue of her mother and reveals that Jupiter is a reincarnation or a recurrence. Kalik then reveals she is over 14,000 years old, and that her mother was 91,000 years old when she was murdered. Kalik then takes Jupiter to a room where she submerges herself in liquid. When she emerges, she's noticeably younger. Kalik explains the liquid replenishes deteriorating cells, and Jupiter asks if they get the liquid from Earth, but Kalik tells her that Earth is only a fraction of their enterprise. Since they have access to resources in the vastness of space, the only resource they fight over is time. Kalik then tells Jupiter that she's a recurrence of Kalik's mother, and she has the right to claim the title to Earth. Cain then shows up, and Kalik guesses that Titus must have hired Cain. Maledix then informs them that Cain had contacted the Aegis, and they'd be arriving soon to take Jupiter to Horus. Kalik concedes, saying she would have taken the liberty of doing the same. Later, the Aegis ship takes off from the planet with Jupiter on board. She meets the ship's captain, Singh, and Stinger welcomes Jupiter. Meanwhile, Skeleton's failure to capture Jupiter has cost him his life, and Balaam has him executed. He then orders Mr. Gregan to finish the job. Cain comes to visit Jupiter, and she asks about Stinger's story about him biting a nobleman. Cain says he doesn't know why he did it, and that it has something to do with how he was engineered. Jupiter says she has the same problem with men as she always falls for men who don't reciprocate her feelings. She then asks if Cain can help her with that problem, alluding that she likes him. Cain tells her they can't be together as she's an Abrasax, and he's a lycantant. They soon reach Oris, and a cyborg assists Jupiter and Cain through the grueling and complicated process of claiming Jupiter's title. At the final step, Jupiter gets a brand on her wrist, officializing her title. Cain escorts her back to the ship, and Jupiter makes another advance, asking Cain if he wants to bite her. Jupiter then asks why Cain is still helping her if his assignment was to get her to Titus, inferring that he must like her somehow. Cain blocks Jupiter's advance, telling her he's helping for Stinger's sake as she could be the key to get both him and Stinger reinstated. Stinger then arrives with a group of bounty hunters, and he apologizes to Cain for his betrayal. Jupiter is then taken to Titus' ship, where Titus greets her. She invokes the law, saying she shouldn't be held against her will as she's a sovereign. Titus agrees and orders a course for Earth and invites Jupiter to dinner. Cain is then detained on the ship. At dinner, Titus tells Jupiter he was very close to his mother and feels he knows Jupiter intimately. Jupiter tells him that Kalik warned her about him, and how he might prevent Jupiter from taking her title. Titus counters, saying Kalik is lying, as it's her who has the most to gain if Jupiter gets her title, as it would negatively impact Balaam. He admits he was once like his siblings, but he has changed. He then takes Jupiter to a room where the cell-repairing liquid is stored. Jupiter recalls Kalik taking a bath in the liquid, and Titus tells her the liquid comes from people. Titus hands Jupiter a cylinder and tells her that approximately 100 persons are farmed for each cylinder. Earth is one of the many planets set up by the Abrasax family to farm people and convert them into the liquid. Theirs is one of many families who have all populated planets for the purpose of gaining immortality. Titus then explains that their mother went through a profound change and tried to stop the harvesting but was murdered. He has now dedicated his life to finishing what his mother began. He doesn't want his inheritance to fall into his siblings' possession upon his death, and so asks Jupiter to be his heir by asking for her hand in marriage. Back on Sing's ship, Stinger calls Titus' assistant long enough for the Sing to trace Cain's location. Cain is then taken out of his cell and prepped to be thrown out into space. Titus meets Cain and tells him he intends to marry Jupiter solely to take her title. Cain lunges at him, but a hatch opens and Cain is sucked out. Fortunately, Cain kicks free several survival suits, and he grabs one and gets suited before he freezes to death. He watches helplessly as Titus' ship jumps into a wormhole. Sing's ship eventually reaches Cain's location and he's rescued. Titus meets with Jupiter and asks her answer to his marriage proposal. Jupiter asks if she can speak with Cain, but Titus tells her that Cain is with authorities. Jupiter says she can't proceed with the marriage, and Titus honors her decision. He then hands her Cain and Stinger's pardon and order for reinstatement before bidding her goodbye. Jupiter, feeling as though she owes Titus, changes her mind and agrees to get married. Titus had successfully guilt-tripped her into accepting. Back on Sing's ship, Stinger explains that Kiza is the reason for his betrayal as she's sick, and they need the money. Cain accepts his apology and invites him to help break Jupiter out. Meanwhile, the wedding rites are commencing on Titus' ship. As Jupiter makes her way down the aisle, Stinger and Cain prepare to attack. As the ceremony commences, they battle through a swarm of defense drones. Titus finishes his vows, and a brand is placed on his finger. Jupiter says her vows, uttering each word with hesitation. She finishes and prepares to get her finger branded, but she hesitates. Titus then holds her hand down, but Cain's ship bursts through the cathedral halls. The ceremony stops, and Cain holds Titus at gunpoint. Cain reveals that Titus plans to murder Jupiter as soon as they're married, and Titus laughs, saying his mother would not have been as gullible as Jupiter. Jupiter then asks Cain to take her back to the Aegis ship. The ship leaves, and Cain goes to see Jupiter. Jupiter hands Cain his pardon and asks him to take her home. Cain agrees, and they arrive back on Earth. They enter Jupiter's home and are surprised to find Knight and Gragan. They've kidnapped Jupiter's family and offer an exchange. Balaam will release her family if she goes with them and abdicates her title. Jupiter agrees, and they travel to meet Balaam. The Aegis tries to follow them, but they're blocked and end up getting stuck above the planet's atmosphere. Jupiter finally meets Balaam, and Balaam narrates how his mother had taught him that life is consumption. To live is to consume. This rationale is the reason why they continue with their enterprise. Her mother also taught him that some lives matter more than others, and Jupiter asks if this is the reason why he killed his mother. Balaam then hands Jupiter a notice of abdication and shows Jupiter her family, who are all unconscious and are being prepped for execution. Jupiter begs Balaam to stop, saying she'll abdicate if he lets her family go. Meanwhile, Cain takes a ship and heads into the planet. He speeds through the planet's atmosphere and ends up breaking through the city's shields before crash landing. Before completing she bravely states that she'd sacrifice herself and her family so long as the Earth remains untouched. Night interrupts them, saying the planet has become unstable and the city will be destroyed. Explosions then occur and Cain bursts through, shooting Gregan. Cain zips around, shooting Balaam's henchman, and he places a device on the floor which allows Jupiter to fall through. Cain catches her and hands her a gun. The two then kiss before splitting up. Cain continues fighting the henchman while Jupiter works on getting her family out. Sing is informed that the city is sinking and the planet's gates are opened. She realizes it's an evacuation, and she takes advantage by ordering their ship in. Balaam tries to stab Jupiter, but she weaves out of the way and shoots him in the leg. A massive pillar then falls, and Jupiter and Balaam fall in. Cain tries to go after them, but Gregan grabs him by the neck and flies him up. Jupiter manages to grab onto a cable, but so does Balaam. She pulls herself up and runs back into a building. Gregan and Cain continue fighting and end up back where they started. Gregan pummels Cain, but Cain manages to kick Gregan back. He then lifts him and drops him on the floor. Cain then shuts off the device he placed earlier and decapitates Gregan. The Aegis establishes contact with Cain, and he tells them he's found Jupiter's family. As Jupiter's family is extracted, Jupiter climbs up a building and narrowly misses a fall. She navigates through the building, avoiding fire and falling debris, but runs into Balaam again and gets knocked down. He begins beating Jupiter, but Jupiter sticks her thumb into Balaam's wound. She then fights back. In an attempt to stop Jupiter, Balaam tells her that his mother hated her life and begged Balaam to end her life. Jupiter shrugs and tells him that she's not his mother. The building then collapses, and Balaam falls. Jupiter falls too, but Cain swoops in and catches her. He places a spacesuit on her, and they begin flying to Sing's ship. Sing then begins opening a portal, buying as much time as possible for Cain and Jupiter to make it back. As the city implodes, Sing's ship enters the portal, but Cain is close behind. As the ship initiates the jump, Cain barely makes it in. The ship reappears near Earth, and they receive a transmission from Cain, telling them that he and Jupiter are safe outside the ship. The crew cheers and Cain and Jupiter hold hands while staring at the planet. The following morning, Jupiter wakes up, eager to get her day started, finding a new purpose for her life. During lunchtime, the family surprises her with a gift. It's the telescope she's always wanted. She later meets with Cain atop a building, and they speak about her ownership of the planet and how Jupiter is still trying to comprehend what that entails. Cain suggests that the planet's future has changed for the better. Cain then shows off his wings, and the two kiss. Jupiter then jumps off the building, gliding down using her gravity boots. Cain then flies after her, and the pair fly off.